Yeah.
He's implementing illegal alien.
What the green card to be quite a controversy, I think.
Get me started on that.
Okay, why don't we get started then? Okay. So welcome to the September 18th, 2020, 23rd meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Health. And let's just start with some attendance. And I'm Hillard Bosky, one of the members. Charlie, you present?
Yep.
Mary,
Yes, present.
Eric,
Present.
Larry.
Yes.
Okay, so we have quorum, needless to say. One thing I do need to read as usual is just having to do with the hybrid participation meeting. So bear with me. I'll make this as quickly as I can. Once again, this is a hybrid participation meeting, Zoom or attend a town hall. This is to formally advise that as required by GL Chapter 30A 18-25 and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on June 16, 2021, is extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. The Yarmouth Board of Health will hold a public meeting on September 18th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. in the hearing room, Yarmouth Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, 02664. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided below. Specific information such as instructions and guidelines for remote members of the public and or parties with the right and or required to attend this meeting can be found on the town website at, which is www.yarmouth.ma.us. That's once again is www.yarmouth.ma.us. Okay. The first item, as usual, is the public comment. And if anyone in the public would like to come forward with some comments on any subjects that are not on tonight's agenda. So if anyone present or watching from home. Have anyone? Any hands up out there or not? I don't see anybody. Once again, no one here. Okay. Let's go. Our second item is a hearing. And it's at 15 Fruin Avenue, Unit H in South Yarmouth. It's for a vote tonight. It's a septic system usage variance. And the essence of it is there's going to be a temporary reduction in design flow for some church seats from 3 gallons per day to 1 gallon per day. Looks like there's a spelling. Yeah. So welcome. Just introduce yourselves and the
Sure.
stage is yours.
Appreciate that. Good evening, Chairman Broski and members of the commission or health board. My name is Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and a civil engineer with Downcape Engineering in Yarmouthport. And we're helping the Assembly of God or Reach Church, as they're alternately known, out with a temporary variance. And I think the word temporary makes everyone feel a little bit better about this situation. They're pleased to have a good attendance. And they've got the church on Mary Dunn Road in Hyannis. It's in the industrial park, but in a kind of a residential end, the very east end there against the wildlife area. And they work well with Trinity Christian Academy, which is next door for their parking and so forth. And they're blessed enough to be able to expand and add on to that church. I helped them with their original site plan over 20 years ago, and they'd always left a little room for expansion. And so they're making those dreams come true. One of their members happens to own this warehouse. It was a bakery / warehouse. I think it was Cape Cod Foods for a while, but happens to own this warehouse space and has offered it to the church for temporary use so that the congregation can continue to worship during the major reconstruction at their facility in the east end of Hyannis in the Mary Dunn Road area. So it's a variance for temporary septic flow. And then what we'd be looking at is We've got a 343 gallon per day allocation here on this end of it's a commercial condo. And the site he's got a couple other units in there and there's quite a bit of parking around. So that's going to work out well. But it's number 15 is the actual space, and he's working with Glenn Knowles, who's the architect. I should mention too, Eliza Cox, if she was able to log on as their legal counsel, very apt legal counsel from Nutter, McLennan and Fish, and has helped us out both on the Barnstable site and here. But she probably won't say anything unless you have a question of a legal nature. But so there, again, one of the members has some space here, and it looked like a good candidate to Mr. Knowles, architect, came up with a plan to rehab the inside and make it suitable for an altar and some seats. There will be no kitchen, which is something that adds a lot of septic flow. The reason we're here is twofold. One, it's in a zone 2 where you don't like to add additional flow, especially long term, because you can build up the nitrates in the groundwater. But again, Title V is written kind of in backwards manner where they look at the peak day, which is a Sunday, and we're not there every day. So you get one day with a little bit of flow, and then the rest of the days are quiet. Wednesday night, I think they may have Bible study and some people in there, and some kids around. But it's not a very big flow generator compared with the peak day. And so Title V doesn't look at that, though. They look at just what's the peak flow, and then you multiply out by 365, kind of a one size fits all application. Here, we would say that because it's a low flow, most people don't go to the bathroom when they go to church. It's just, you go in, you go out, say hi and going home. So the source of nitrogen is, of course, urine and flushing the toilet. And that ammonia turns into nitrates when it interacts with the solids in the wastewater, and can be a problem. But again, very light use, just on weekends and Wednesday nights. So the overarching concern about nitrates is mitigated by that, and the fact that it's temporary. We're only going to be here for a year and a half. And you might know that just upstream of us, there's the wastewater treatment plant facility. So they treat their effluent down below 10 parts per million, but it's a factor in the area. And I would say we're just a drop in the bucket, really. Because it's not going to be used full time, I think that you could look at that, and you could look at the fact that it's temporary and it's got a fairly modern system here. I think it was 95 upgrade or 05 updated to the 95 code. It's got a good sized tank because it was a processing facility before, and a fairly new leaching field. So we feel quite comfortable that we'll hydraulically handle the flow. If there's any sign of problem at all, we'll pump or add, and we can update Jay if there's any issues whatsoever. But I think this commission could make a special exception to look at the design flow being 1 gallon per day per seat rather than 3, in order to allow these good people to be able to use the facility temporarily at this location at a 15 Fruin Way in South Yarmouth. I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Board members.
Have you had any problems with this before?
No, where they are now, it's been on the same system for 23 years, and it's been 0 problems.
All right, I don't see a problem.
And no issues with the current planned site that you know of?
No, the town is working with us on it for parking and handicap access and things like that, but they're all pretty pleased. It's a kind of a backwater dead end, so no traffic concerns. And it's off Old Townhouse, which is a well signalized and relatively low traveled way. So no traffic. I really don't see any issues from any perspectives on this for temporary use.
You said it was 18 months. Is that a rigid timeline?
Well, they're hoping for a year. The architect said realistically could be up to 18 months. So we'll ask for that. And, if you'd like to put a stipulation that we have to come back a month before, if it looks like we're going to go longer than that, we'll be glad to do that. But I do think this would be appropriate to sunset it at 18 months because, it is an unusual request, but it's some very special and unique circumstances, which is why we can grant variances from the health regulations. But 18 months, I think, is a good number.
You mentioned if there were problems, in other words, what kind of problems would you expect? I mean, other than something would be pretty drastic. Most of us wouldn't.
Well, it
know
would
if
be
something-
breakout would be the problem. You know, if somebody left the water running and it broke out of the ground, it physically couldn't take the flow. There's large factors of safety with these leaching fields, and unless you put a high strength waste in them, they would generally take quite a bit of water. So it's fine sand, you know, nowhere near the groundwater. So I wouldn't anticipate any problems whatsoever, but in the rare occurrence that there were, there's a number of things we could do, including, you know, using it as a tight tank and just pumping out that 2,000 gallon tank after, you know, a couple of services. But, you know, I really don't think that would be a problem.
So it's a single tank, it's 2,000?
Yeah, it's got a grease trap, which we probably wouldn't use except, but it's a 2,000 gallon tank. Or I'm sorry, it's a big one. There's a 4,000 and a 2,000 gallon grease trap. So it's a huge tank. Again, they were doing, before the septic system was upgraded, they were doing some food processing in there. So it's oversized for sure.
Do you know if anyone last time it was pumped?
We'd have to look, but it's been vacant for a while now, a year or two. So we would have to look into that. I know there was a passing inspection for the sale. That's the last recollection I have. And again, it's a relatively new system, 05. So.
Anybody? Some other questions? Anything?
No questions here.
Yeah.
Jay?
Dan, if I could, you mentioned no food service. So nothing would be brought in, although they don't have, there's kitchen facility, but there wouldn't be any like after services or the Wednesday night. They don't typically, I think they're coming from Hyannis, is that right?
Yeah, from Hyannis. I think what they told me for the time that they're here, in Hyannis, they do have a grease trap. You know, could do like, you know, bean suppers and that sort of thing. But
Right.
so they're absolutely willing to give it up for this.
So that's going to be
So,
prohibited.
no, if we did have anything, it would be like prepackaged snacks, absolutely no washing of anything.
No single use. Terrific. And then the other, what's the size of the congregation? What numbers like would get together on a Sunday?
Well, you know, they would like up to 300, you know, you know, I didn't believe it till I went by that church on a Sunday
Yeah.
and they fill up their parking lot and
Yeah.
next door at Trinity, they're overflowing. It's a nice, healthy congregation, but again, they're only there for a couple hours. So
Okay.
But not everybody goes to church.
not everybody at once. Yeah, no, but that's a good number though, if they get a, you know, like an Easter service.
So anyone want to make a motion if you want to decide what to do with this?
I move that we grant the septic system usage variance from State Title 5, 15.203, which is the reduction in design flow for the church seats from 3 gallons per day to 1 gallon per day, that this would be an 18-month period. And we would like to know that the septic system has been pumped within the last 5 years.
We need to know the date when we should start this year and a half. When do you-
Anytime, another month or so, or I think they're going to be ready to start breaking ground in about a month.
So what, October 1st, November
Yeah.
1st? What?
Yeah, that'd be fine, October.
Okay, October 1st, starting October 1st.
Second? Okay, Charlie. Okay, so any other discussion? Probably not. Let's see what the vote is. Eric, aye or nay?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
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 Charlie?
Aye.
Fine, unanimous, that's fine. Okay, so just let us know about the pumping, okay?
We'll make
Thanks.
sure we've got a pump, and if it hasn't been pumped, we'll pump and get the records over to Jay. We really appreciate your careful consideration and thank you very much.
You see, did you go over? I had to go over all these trucks and boards header parked there. I don't know. I hadn't been down there in years. Okay,
Dan, thanks. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
all right. Third item here is a public hearing, and that's restricting the sale of tobacco products regulation dash vote. And what's listed here is a draft regulation. Jay, maybe you could just tell us
Sure.
what we're
Sure.
doing tonight.
First, I have to comment, this is the first time in my tenure here, which isn't long, but the whole board is here. And it's great to see that everyone is here and turned the corner maybe from COVID and filling out the full complement of the board. And that's terrific. So it's great to see that all of us are here and live and in person for discussion.
We're not
So-
avatars. Okay.
No, that's right.
Policy.
That's right. There you go. Terrific. To bring us up to speed, over the past probably 6 months, the board has been looking at the tobacco regulations in incremental phases. If you recall, back in the fall of last year, an issue came up where the Yarmouth regulation was not in line with state regulations regarding youth compliance, things of that nature. So the board took steps and adjusted the Yarmouth regulation just in the section of youth compliance, so that those violations went from 300, 500 up to 1,000, 2,000, and 5,000. So it aligned with the state, but only in that section, only in the youth compliance section. So over the summer, actually, and at the last meeting, Bob Collette was here. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight, but he has sent a representative. The board showed some agreement to say, well, let's try to align the Yarmouth regulations in better alignment with the state regulations, right? And that's what happened at the last meeting. We sent this on to Bob and the legal team at the state. And they came back with a document which is color coded, and to the chairman's understanding, it is somewhat confusing. So Sarah, we're going to ask you to kind of walk us through this, but it is color coded to say, what is the board looking to as far as taking the state regulations, the existing regulations, and perhaps marrying those regulations. So Sarah's here from MHOA, am I correct?
Yes,
And she is going to help in Bob's stead. Bob Collette could not be here tonight, but she's very familiar with it. She has reviewed this and she's going to help the board walk through this. And if in fact there are still some things that can't be reconciled, I would ask the board, it appears that there are some permit holders that are here that they may want to speak as well. But so the board is aware that all of the permit holders were given written notification and visits to explain what the board is considering. And then that these new draft regulations are online for them to review. And that's been there for probably 3 weeks now.
If there are any permit holders that have some time restraints, if there's something you want to say now, you certainly can come up and do that. Or if you have the time to stay and just watch the process as we're trying to figure this out, you'll certainly have a chance to do it during this period of time. So just as a courtesy, if you had to leave, you want to speak first, otherwise sit tight and let's see where this goes. Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
good evening. Some of your faces are familiar from the Cumberland Farms versus the Board of Health in Yarmouth days. So I'm Sarah McColgan. I'm the Director of the Tobacco Control Program for Massachusetts Health Officers Association, and here in Bob's place. So the regulations that you have in front of you are highlighted. Yellow is what's required in the state regulation. All boards of health are required to enforce the state regulation, whether it's in their paper documents or not. And the green is primarily policy decisions that as a board you can make. There are a couple errors in there, and I'll go through them as we go. There are a couple places that are green that shouldn't be green. So I'll go through those.
Sarah, if I could just, so the board understands the green, it has been changed to gray for you. So we could read so you could read the text through the dark green. So just be aware that the green has changed to gray.
Bear with me because mine is green and it's very difficult to read.
Oh,
For a copy.
yeah.
I'm fine. I've got little notes in here and everything, so I'm fine. Thank you. So the first 3 or 4 pages are the statement of purpose, and those are the same things that are in your existing regulations, although they've been updated, some of them. And some of the language has maybe been rephrased a little bit. But those are basically the same. Then obviously Board of Health Authority is the same. Then when we get into definitions, you'll see in characterizing flavor, we've now, because of the state law, added mint, menthol, and wintergreen as banned flavors. So previously Yarmouth had an exemption for mint, menthol, and wintergreen. And now when you passed your original flavor restriction, you did. And then when the state passed the state law, they included everything. So child resistant packaging is new and in the state law. And then as you move down to cigar, the language that's in yellow there, readily usable, is also in the state law. But then you also get in your gray section there, tobacco leaf in kits or roll your own packages shall be considered blunt wraps for the purpose of this regulation. And you folks have banned blunt wraps. So if you want roll your own to roll your own tobacco leaves and kits to also be banned, you would put that in that definition. Otherwise, we would remove that from the definition. Then you'll see coupon. You probably had that in your existing regulations. On the next page, electronic nicotine delivery system.
Excuse me one second.
Could I just jump in? Sorry, is it okay? And I don't mean to want to disrupt your presentation, but I think it's timely rather than going back. Is it okay if you, as you read each section, that the book, so we can see that it's kind of a cadence to this, because I would like to go back to the menthol mint in wintergreen. And the chairman brought this to my attention about a half an hour ago, that actually is included in the Yarmouth regulation.
It may be, I don't know.
All right, I'm not, it's not a gotcha. It's just, we want to make sure the board understands that was actually in there. So it's a little bit confusing that's actually in the Yarmouth existing regulations. So some of these may.
I can pull up.
It is. I've had it in front of me
okay.
here.
All right.
From 2018.
Yeah, so if, I mean, regardless of that, it's state law now that menthol and wintergreen are a flavor across the whole state, can't be sold in Massachusetts, with the exception of 25 smoking bars that are spread out around the state. Your closest one is in Hyannis. That's the only one on the Cape. And so flavored products, not just mint, menthol, or wintergreen, but any flavored product can be sold in the smoking bar that's in Hyannis, but it's for on-site consumption only. So customers are not supposed to be removing the product from the building.
So your conversation was helpful for, I think, for the board in their deliberation. Yellow is required.
Yellow is required.
Okay,
You
and
don't have to put it in your regulation, but you're required to enforce it. So you might as well put it in your
All means.
regulation.
Yeah.
thank you for that. That was unclear, and I'm cleared that up, and I'm not faulting Bob. We didn't get that very clearly, but the points of discussion are from the last meeting that the board had showed, do they want to include this or not include this, are really in the gray/green areas.
Okay, so
Okay, is that true?
you want me to?
Yes.
skip
No,
the
I think
yellow
if you
or
can,
just-
if you can walk the board through all of this, this is an education process. I believe so for the board, if that's their call.
Oh, by all means, yes.
All righty. So as I said, coupon, you folks probably have that in your existing regulation. Electronic nicotine delivery system, maybe some of that definition has changed slightly, but that's the state definition. So that's the definition that we're using at this point. And then the same with liquid nicotine container, that refers to the little nicotine, the juice for electronic cigarettes. And listed or discount price refers to the price that's being charged for tobacco products. There's a minimum pricing in Massachusetts on tobacco products, and that's pretty much controlled by the Department of Revenue. And there's a minimum pricing list. Manufacturer documentation is new, and it's very important. That's one of the requirements of the new state law. And when I say new state law, 2019, it was signed by Governor Baker. And it requires two different types of manufacturer documentation. all of the stores don't need to have it, but a non-age restricted store, so like a convenience store, believe it or not, a liquor store is not an age restricted store. Anybody can go in. You can't sell to them, but anybody can go in. So non-age restricted stores and the adult only retail tobacco stores have to have a letter from the manufacturer that they get through their distributor that attests that all of that manufacturer's products that are being sold in that particular store are not flavored. And they have to list all the products. And then the other letter that they have to get, same thing, from the manufacturer through the distributor, but only the non-age restricted stores have to have this letter, is attesting that all of the electronic nicotine delivery products have 35 milligrams per milliliter of nicotine or less. Adult only retail tobacco stores and the smoking bars can sell electronic products with higher than 35 milligrams per milliliter. So that's one new aspect, one new thing that Bob would be looking at when he goes in and does inspections. That's very important. Retailer, I think that's probably a new definition for the state. You've got it. Retail establishment, same thing. And then we get down to rolling papers. And the definition for rolling papers, we would leave in if you want to consider them to be what we call a flavor product enhancer. So a flavored rolling paper, like a grape rolling paper, and then you roll tobacco, or more often than not, you're rolling marijuana with it, is a flavor product enhancer. And you can ban those if we leave that definition in. It would ban the rolling papers. And also hemp wraps. Then on, I believe it's your page 7, there's the definition of a tobacco flavor product enhancer, something designed to produce a characterizing flavor when it's added to a tobacco product. So the tobacco starting out is going to be just plain natural tobacco flavor, and then an enhancer, it will be added to that, whether it's in a rolling paper form or a liquid form, whatever, to make that tobacco then taste like a characterizing flavor. Rolling papers, again, if you determine that you want to ban them, we would leave in that last sentence, rolling paper with a characterizing flavor shall be considered a tobacco product flavor enhancer. The under 21 you folks did years ago, so that's pretty much the same. The signage is, there's a lot of new signs that pertain not only to the age of 21, but there are new signs that pertain to the ban of flavored tobacco products and things like that. But within that 21 section D, 2A, you'll see in gray, including adult only retail tobacco stores. And that should be green and not green. That should be yellow and not gray. You don't have discretion as to whether or not an adult only retail tobacco store has the signs posted. So that's an error. And it should be in yellow with everything else in there. B, all adult only tobacco stores are posting the signage, and those signs are free. The health department has them, Bob has them when he goes in and inspects, and he can replace any that look worn or whatever. And as I said, there's a number of new ones. Smoking bars and smoking bars and adult only that allow for on-site consumption of products have certain signs that they have to post to. Now, if you're banning smoking bars, we would just delete that. And I don't remember, do you currently allow smoking in adult-only retail tobacco stores? Do you know that offhand, Jay? I can look and see.
I don't think we allow them.
I don't
No,
think so. So we can we can remove anything in there that pertains to allowing the on-site consumption, but there is language in there that we would keep in because it describes where all the signage is supposed to be placed as far as how many feet off the floor, how many feet from the ceiling. Then when you look in set number 3, both of those gray, the word every in A and B should not be colored in gray. They should be yellow. Those are, or actually they should be yellow. They could go either way. Just no highlight or yellow. It's new. The state added it in the word every so that people realize that if you ID somebody today and they come back in tomorrow and you're the same store employee who's IDing them both days, you still have to ID them the second day. And so every time they come up, they have to be ID'd. And also everyone who purchases tobacco products needs to be ID'd. Before, it was if the person appeared to be under the age of 27. Now it's everyone. So we call it the Fenway rule. If you go to Fenway and you want a beer, everybody shows ID. Same with the other big venues. So this is the same as that. The permit E number 1, indoor is highlighted there. You have the option there to include the word indoor so that if there was like an outdoor flea market or something like that, they couldn't sell tobacco products because your regulations would say indoor if you choose that option. Okay, then on page 9, number 9, neither the permit holder nor their employee shall interfere with or obstruct an inspection. And that should not be gray. That's just accepted language, you know, over the years. So I think that was an error that was gray. Number 11, if a permit holder has sold 3 times within whatever time period you establish, whether it's 24 months or 36 months, then that permit holder would have a hearing and they may have their permit revoked at that point. So that's something that the board can think about and decide if they want to do that. Number 13, no permits within 2,000 feet of an existing retailer, and that only applies to new ones. No new permits would be issued within 2,000 feet of an existing retailer. And you can decide how many feet. I don't know whether it was Bob or somebody else had put in 2,000, but you can decide 500, 1,000, 2,000. And again, it would only apply to new permits, new stores coming in. It wouldn't apply to any of your existing stores.
Sarah, just, I think when the board, if the recollection is that the board decided, they chose to
Yes.
2,000 feet. That was
Okay.
We decided.
at the last meeting.
All righty. Prohibiting smoking bars, might be in your current regulations now, probably is. And so that is a policy decision. And again, we keep that in. And then H, when we get into the sale of flavored tobacco products, you'll see there 3 times that the words possess, hold, and keep are in gray, and that's That's at your discretion. To me, it seems pretty obvious. No person shall sell or distribute or cause to be sold or distributed any flavored product. But there have been retailers who, upon inspection, have flavored product in the store. The inspector says, you can't have these. And the retailer says, oh, I'm not selling them. I just have them here for display. So this spells it out that they cannot, I mean, it was pretty obvious to most of us before, but now this spells it out that they cannot have them in the store at all. If they're a banned product, a flavored product, or a banned product within the state law. So that is in there 4 times, actually. It says it also in the nicotine delivery section, number I. So again, you don't have to put that in, but I think it just makes the intent much clearer. Page 11, number M, you've got in gray, self-service displays, and it exempts the adult-only retail tobacco stores, but I don't believe there's an exemption in your current regulations for self-service displays. Probably find it fairly quickly.
Can you explain what a self-service display is? Please?
Sure. A self-service display is anything that the customer can touch, can pick up off of the counter or in a rack, that the customer can touch without having to ask for it. Customers shouldn't have access to any tobacco product without, without the exchange of can I have, and then asking for the clerk asking for identification and the customer showing the ID. In the old days, self-service displays were on the counter. They were down at the bottom, like a candy level, whatever. And so that prevents that. It also includes humidors. All humidors, regardless of their size, have to be locked. So right now, on your existing regulations on page 10L, it just says self-service displays of tobacco products as defined herein are prohibited. All humidors, including but not limited to walk-in humidors, must be locked. So your existing regs don't have an exemption for adult-only stores, whereas your draft, maybe it's something that you had asked for, does have an exemption. So it would all of a sudden allow adult-only retail stores to be able to have self-service displays. Now, remember, an adult-only retail store is exactly what it says. They're not supposed to allow anybody under the age of 21 to go in. So they're supposed to have a buzzer on the door or a person at the door, a bell on the door, something so that before the customer crosses the threshold, they're being asked for their identification. So it's up to you as to whether or not you exempt that or not. Then there was a sentence in here that caused me a little concern. I think maybe there's a typo or something. Bottom of page 11R, tobacco product permit cap. At any given time, there shall be no more than the number of tobacco product sales permits at the time of the public hearing. I mean, it's unusual. Usually a board will say, we have 25 now, so let's cap it at 25 or let's cap it at 27. I think it would be helpful to put a number in there rather than just saying at the time of the public hearing.
Right. And we can go back and look at what that was. I think I remember a little bit, maybe.
It says the same thing. It just makes it
Right. Yeah,
clearer for somebody who's
Absolutely.
reading it.
understand. Yep.
If a new retailer or a new potential retailer wanted to come into town and they read your regulations to see if they could get a permit at the health department, it wouldn't really tell them much. Then when we get into page 12, violations, again, as Jay said, you've incorporated some of this already, and this is where the new state law comes in. The state has mandated on certain violations, which you'll see on page 13 on the left side of the two columns there. On the left column, the state has mandated that any of those violations get a fine of $1,000 the first time, $2,000 the second time, and $5,000 the third time. And in addition, the state has also mandated on the first sale, if it's a sale to a minor, that they get a permit suspension. If it's a sale of, well, let's say, let me think of something else. If it's the sale of a flavored tobacco product, they'd get $1,000 fine. But if it was a sale to somebody under the age of 21, they'd get the $1,000 fine and a permit suspension, which would be the amount of time would be determined by you folks. And that's all in number one. You could say that you wanted them to have a permit suspension for any violation on number one, but that's not mandated in the state law. But as you know, you can go beyond the state law. 36 months is highlighted in gray. And again, you have discretion on that. You have discretion on how many business days you would give the violators for a permit suspension. And you also have discretion on whether you use the word shall in B and C, or whether you use the word may. Shall means every retailer who comes in front of you is going to have a suspension for however many days you decide. May means you might give me a suspension of 5 days, but you might give Jay a suspension of 3 days. And how do you decide that? How do you, where do you draw the line in that? So that's never something that I recommend. I always recommend shall, but again, it's up to your discretion. For violations of other things, which you'll see on the right side column, currently you have 300 for the first, 400 for the second, and 500 for the third in your current regulations. We can leave that like that. You can also do what we call a unified fining structure, so that all of the fines would be the same as the state fines. 1,000 on the first, 2,000 on the second, 5,000 on the third within, say, 36 months. So it makes it a little less confusing. It definitely ups the ante for retailers to make sure that they're following your regulations. And so that would apply to things like banning the sale of blunt wraps, the cigar pricing, which you've had for years, non-resident roll your own machines, all the things that are on the right-hand side that you folks already have, it would apply to those. So it's a, case of leave it like it is or have a unified fining structure, and it's totally up to you on that.
Sarah, can I just stop you there? Because this was a point of discussion.
Yeah.
In your explanation, the hypothetical that you just gave, if someone had a signage, like improper signage, that could be $1,000 if.
It could be, but most, and I'm not, I don't want to speak for Bob, but I think I can speak for Bob. Most inspectors would go in and say, you don't have this sign, and they'd give them a new sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, if they go back 6 months later, a year later, they'd give them a new sign. But if it got to the point where every time an inspector went in there, it was obvious that they're not putting up the sign that they've been given.
Yep.
Or if they are blatant and say, no, I'm not going to put that up.
Maybe my example wasn't the best one, but this $300 fine and these smaller fines are for things outside of youth compliance.
Outside of the state law, which pertains more than youth compliance.
Okay, okay. What types
Some
of,
examples of that.
yeah, what's some things that, just trying to some clarity.
So let me make sure that I understand what you're asking. Examples of things that would be the 300, 400, 500?
There's two tiers. One, I think it is, for myself anyway, I think I'm pretty clear on youth compliance. And the board has actually had several where they have deliberated and
Right.
issued those high, significant penalties, right?
So what else would they get
What
fined?
would
at
be that next tier? Is that flavored? Is that, where does that tier fall in?
Generally, most boards of health, I mean, everybody's fining on sales to somebody under 21. Pretty much everybody's fining on when flavored products are found within a store. Boards are starting to fine for a store that doesn't have the required manufacturer letters. But that's only after they've been visited numbers of times. And it's easy to get those letters. You call your distributor, they have them, because there's almost 7,000 manufacturers in Massachusetts and everybody needs them. So the distributors have them there on file. So it's a matter of, a few phone calls and you can get those letters that you're required to have. Trying to think, having nicotine, having electronic nicotine products in a convenience type store that have higher than 35 milligrams per milliliter. So the 3% Juul is fine in a convenience store, but the 5% Juul is not. So if 5% Juul was found in the convenience store, it would be,
Okay.
it would fit under the state fine. And the number on the fine depends on how many previous violations you have, just like your current system of 3, 4, and 500.
So good, Mr. Chairman, good.
You gave very clear examples. Now, what tier are those on? What are towns using?
Tier as far as dollar amount,
It's dollar amounts, obviously.
the first time is 1,000, regardless of which thing on the left-hand side.
Yes,
1,000. The second time, within however many months you decide, we recommend 36. The second time is 2,000, regardless of which thing. The third time, again, within 36 months, is 5,000,
right.
regardless of which thing. And if you decided on a unified fining structure, it would all be the same. They'd all be, both of these columns would be mushed in together and it would be 1,000, 2,000, 5,000.
But it's possible that some localities don't have any of these policies subject to local regulations or fines that are in the right-hand column.
In the right-hand column.
Right.
Those
Those are up to the localities.
They are,
Yeah,
they are.
right.
Yeah, generally, most municipalities have at least a few of them.
Oh,
But
yes,
You folks are progressive enough so that you have
Right.
probably all of them.
right. I hope so. No local tobacco sales permit. I mean, that's pretty important. But it's not a state regulation.
It's not a state requirement.
Okay.
So I think that, are there more questions on the fining structure? So you have two choices. Leave it the way it is, which is you're required to fine on the state. And then you've got your own for the lesser infractions, or fining on the state for everything. Um,
And our page numbers are different than yours, just so you know.
your page numbers are different. Boy, that really makes it confusing.
Yes, so I'm just going to turn the page that I
Okay.
have and see if it.
Okay.
if-
All righty. I'm glad that I've also been kind of saying
Yes.
which section
That's
here.
helpful, yes.
Colors and page numbers, confusing. Okay. So, other state policies. Again, this is where you decide the months. I don't know why it has 24 months in there. You need to, you should be consistent. So if you pick 24 months, it's number 3.
Right.
Let me see,
Our page
my page
17.
14,
Our-
but it's above
17 for
section
us.
S, number 3. So if you pick, 36 months, stick with 36 months. You've got 36 on one page and 24 on the other page. So stick with the, whatever you folks decide on, stick with the same amount going through. And then the rest is, is kind of administrative. Non-criminal disposition is your current fining structure. You can only fine up to $300 with a 21D ticket. After that, you have to write a cease and desist order. Anything over $300 requires a cease and desist order. Separate violations. That sometimes is enforced or sometimes not very enforced by boards. If you've got a retailer that you go in and they've let their permit lapse and their permit lapsed, say 3 weeks, are you going to fine them for every single day? Maybe because your regulations say you should, but maybe you're not going to. The state isn't going to come and shut down the health department for, something like that. And it's not that you have discretion, it's just that it happens, I mean, I know there's one retailer, I believe in Bellingham, that by the time their board was done with him, he had $38,000 in fines. So you pretty much have to close your store down, I think, at that point, or sell it. Enforcement is same as before, severability and everything is the same. Folks would need to pick an effective date for the regulation. And then, as always, gets advertised. Copy should go out to the retailers.
I apologize for the confusion. The board and myself are working off a copy that Bob had sent us.
Okay.
I'm not sure where your copy originated from.
Yeah, Bill had sent this, I think, to
Okay.
Bob,
so-
Friday.
Regardless, it's a little bit confusing. We worked our way through it. I don't know the board will make a decision on how this goes, but I so appreciate this clarifying conversation. I think there's still a little bit of work to do, but the board will decide what that looks like.
Sure, there's a lot of decisions in there for you to make,
Right.
a lot of discretionary things. Does anybody have any other questions? I'm happy to answer the questions you may have. Those of you that have been around for a while, you might be interested to know that Cumberland Farms is suing Braintree for
Oh.
jazz
Oh,
all over again. It's a kind of they're not saying that it was not a flavored product because that's an over and done with deal, but they're saying that Braintree didn't follow procedures on notification and things like that. But we just all kind of got a chuckle out of it that it was jazz all over again.
must have some extra money for legal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah, before you depart, I just don't know if maybe some
Yeah. If
retailers have a question.
they want to come up, they have questions, comments, this would be a great time while we have an expert here. Yeah, just come on up, introduce yourself, just your name and which,
That's fine.
yeah, which
Yep.
store you have in town. Thank you.
My name is Vishal Shukla. I'm the part of the owner of Yarmouth Port Village as well as the Station Avenue Convenience Store. And I just have a few questions for her, like when we mention like the smoking, the rolling papers, is a flavor rolling papers only, right? Or is that the regular rolling paper also?
Flavored only, unless the board wants to ban all of them. The board can ban all of them.
Right. No, that was the, you know, the thing. And when we say like a 21, like if we sell it to 21 and that's, if the board decide that 1,000, 2,000 and 5,000 goes effect only when we sell to 21, or it goes to like all the other, also violations.
All the other violations.
Right.
If, do you have a copy of the regulations? I can't tell you which page it's on now that I know that the pages are different than mine, but there is a page that has 2 columns on it. It's my number 13, so it should be either your 12.
16, I think.
Or 16. Yeah.
Mine is
Wow.
12.
16.
Okay, so 2 columns on it, and the all of the violations on the left-hand side. All are, the board is required to fine at 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. The violations on the right-hand side are not state law, they're local policies. So the board can decide to fine at their current lower amount, or they can put in their regulations, what's called a unified fining structure, and decide that everything's going to be fined at 1,000, 2,000, 5,000.
And the third question I have with the board. So when we mention like 2,000 feet from existing store, as you all know, I own the Station Avenue Convenience Store and the Seasons Market gonna open probably right next to me. So is that something you guys allowed, or is that come under that 2,000 feet regulation? But because that's gonna be new store built, not the existing, they have it and they started.
And do they have a license, a permit to sell tobacco?
They must, because if they have it, then that's why they,
No, do they have one? Because if they don't have one, then it doesn't matter, but if they have one, then that's a problem in terms of the 2,000 feet, yes,
If you put that regulation in, you haven't done that yet.
right.
So are they open now?
no, they're
Open.
breaking the ground right now. They're not
Okay,
open.
so
yet.
I'm sure they don't have a permit yet
Well-
then. I don't think, I mean, yeah,
Eric?
so.
If I remember correctly, aren't the other 2 existing gas stations closing? So I don't
yes.
know if one of them has a permit.
Oh, if that's what you're talking about, yeah,
Yeah,
those 2 are
maybe the
closing.
Golf, I don't know if the Golf has a permit.
No, but it would be, there is a permit in place now. The 2 that is closed, one across the street, the Shell station.
Right.
That is
Right.
closing. There's a permit there.
Right.
So how would we interpret that where we have something under construction? They have a permit on the shelf
Right,
right now. And should the board move forward, how do they exempt or how do they include that in that regulation?
there's better permit language than what's in your draft. There's language that specifically says, if a permit is turned in, then it's retired.
Right,
That's called a reducing cap.
we have that. That's-
So if you have a reducing cap and 2 gas stations have closed and you've reduced your cap from say 25 to 23, then there's no available permits.
Only if they have given up that license.
So
Just because they're closing but opening a newer facility.
If they're selling and it's going to be a convenience store again, then yes, they can capture that license.
Right.
But if it's going to be, I don't know, a bookstore or something, then that permit would be retired.
But to the gentleman's question, so it's exactly two gas stations closing, one has a permit. They're going to take that across the street within that, although I don't know the measure.
Well,
within-
I don't know the measurement is.
Yeah.
But
But how would we interpret that? Within the 2,000, if, the hypothetical, it is within the 2,000, if the board were to move forward with that,
Seems like we'd be
Restriction.
grandfathered. I mean, if we pass this now,
right?
wasn't in effect when they came before us and talked about this whole thing of closing two and opening up one.
Right.
So, and I mean, it seems the fair thing would be, it would be grandfathered.
Seems to make
But-
sense.
Probably not fair to the retail.
no, I
Less than
completely
2,000
understand,
feet
but
away.
well, that was the question, like,
It's a
because
great
they
one.
did not even open yet.
It's a
They're
very,
breaking the grounds right now. And
So I think this fits what you're talking about, and
Yeah.
it's a gray policy decision, but I don't believe it's in your draft. If the purchaser of a business with a valid tobacco sales permit pursuant to section E9 changes the location of the business, the new location shall be subject to the retail density requirements of section E10. So E10 talks about the no new permits within however many feet.
Right.
The new location shall not be within 500 feet of a public or private elementary school. New location shall not be within X number of feet of an existing retailer.
That's okay.
So
so
there's some language available to you
Right.
that is not in your draft. And
Right.
did you see that? Was that given to you before?
No, I don't think we saw, it was just the,
I don't recall it.
I don't
Yeah.
recall it.
no, Bob,
being That
gave us-
detailed, no,
yeah, you're correct, Mary. Bob gave a scenario where you could, against a density issue, and there were several different choices, 1,000, 2,000, and say 5,000. I don't recall the number that, and the board just said,
5,000 and 2,000.
okay, well, that's what it is in the board at the last meeting when Bob was here.
we picked
They moved,
2,000.
they moved it forward as 2,000.
2,000. And again, that only affects the new retailers. It doesn't mean that two people that are close to each other somebody has to close.
Okay.
Has your question been answered?
Maybe not.
yes and no.
Look, don't go away then. Stay right there. Let's figure this
person
out.
Isn't a new retailer. It's not a new retailer.
That's right. It's not, it's an existing.
It's an existing license. But,
Yes.
and I don't know when this is going to get passed. But if we pass it with that 2,000 feet prohibition or then just my own opinion, in fairness, that other situation would be grandfathered because it came before us and we, voted on it, we discussed it and all, and at the time that regulation wasn't in place.
If the regulation was not in place at that point, you're right.
Okay.
Right. What might be helpful is if Bob could give you a call and you can explain the question to him, and then maybe he can come out and talk to you at your store.
Yeah, that's
Very
fine.
helpful. So to put some clarity to it, we do have a cap that the board does had put a cap at 29. We have 29 tobacco retailers in Yarmouth and not to go above that.
And you're gonna retire and reduce that as permits
Yes,
become available.
we have already.
Yes.
Yes, it's already been happening.
And you mentioned existing is a 500 500 feet, or there's no existing at all for the feet wise for the existing or.
There's nothing
license.
right
No
now.
Oh,
distance
okay,
right
okay,
now.
okay. Yeah, so that.
So
that
it wouldn't
gives the
affect
answer.
you, wouldn't affect your neighborhood, your neighbor retailers. It would only affect somebody coming in for a new store. But if there's no permits available, then there's no new store.
But if somebody takes somebody else's permit, they can move somewhere else. That
Right,
Should be
correct.
okay.
Yes,
Okay.
But they still have to be within
With 2,000, more than 2,000
whatever the
feet.
board decides on the
Okay.
feet.
Yeah. So. All right, I think that's all my answers. All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there is somebody with their hand up on.
Okay. Let's take the call.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Tom Nicanello here. How are you?
Okay, we're just sort of navigating some tobacco waters here. That's all. We're
Yes,
doing that together. What about yourself? What brings you in tonight?
Yes, well, thank you very much. I concur with our health director that it's very nice to see a full board this evening. We all miss each other and Zoom is good, but to see a full board is quite exciting. And thanks to our health director doing a great job putting this on. Just a point of clarification from the business community. The gentleman that owns a Shell station on Station Avenue is the owner of the Seasons that is under construction and has already been permitted to go ahead and conduct his business across the street. And as soon as that business is open, the other business across the street will be shut down. So
Right.
as he said, there will be a transfer and it's already permitted. So I just want to interject and let you know. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks for confirming that. Thanks.
Anybody else out there?
Okay. Someone else here. This is a good opportunity. We have someone with all the answers, which is nice.
Oh, I don't know that that's true.
Well, all the questions anyway. That was very helpful when you
Yeah,
came
thank
up.
you.
So if there's any other people that have some thoughts, please come up and share them because this is all pretty complicated, I think. And it certainly is important to businesses.
So questions, what to do this evening?
Yeah, if I could, sir, there's a lot to digest here. There's a lot to digest. I'm just trying to think, your expertise as far as moving this board to give them some information. How does they best deliberate on this and move this forward incrementally? The thought originally, what came actually from legal, I believe, came from legal. And the thought was and it was put on for a vote and doesn't appear that it's ready for that. Is the next step to look at the great yellow is it's there. So that will be put in. The board will step through what the great, where they want to look at those discretionary items. Put this back in, put it back on the agenda, maybe, next month sometime. Is that the thought?
That makes sense.
Okay, and please correct me. And then to put this back out again. Does that make sense?
You would, probably if the board decides on the discretionary, then you would hold a public hearing.
Again, yep.
And, then the board takes written comment sometimes after the public hearing, closes the hearing and, then probably at their next normal meeting, they wouldn't take any more comments from the audience.
Yep.
But they might discuss something amongst them, amongst the board, and then they would vote.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that part. It's just looking over, and there's probably a couple dozen places where they have some discretion and some things that have to be gone over. Each an individual, sometimes it's just a word,
Right.
but that may be a meeting down the road. I'm not sure how the board wants to handle that, but you've provided a lot of clarity tonight and a lot of very, very, very helpful. And you work through the color coded issue for us as well. So thank you on that.
Don't forget about the pages.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, Bob, I gotta talk to Bob about that one. Yeah, everyone's working off a different sheet of music here.
Yeah.
Um,
Very good. Well, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you folks again. It's nice to see you.
Same here.
thank you. Thank you, sir. I'll be in touch with Bob. Thank you again.
Well, yellow means it's in there.
Right.
Okay.
Yellow is
That's
involved.
one way to start simplifying this process.
That is embedded.
Right, so we can get rid of yellow markings.
Right.
Try to reduce this a little bit.
Right.
So our task is looking at all the new green, gray areas, deciding what to do with them. Is that correct?
From what,
Have we
from what I
see
said, that's where the discretion is. The board would,
Right.
right? The board will talk about
So
that.
we're gonna need to go one by one and look at them.
Right.
We can do some of it. We can do it tonight, do it the next meeting, but that's, there's. I mean, one of the bigger issues, of course, is are there they're having a unified structure or not? In other words, where everything's fine, the same amount or not, seems to be one of the bigger issues from my standpoint of
Right.
view.
Right. Some of them are pretty simple.
The unified structure simplifies it, but there are obviously, there's some violations that probably aren't as significant and yet could have the same fine and so on. So I think that's something this board needs to come about and discuss and see how we feel about that. We're talking about a lot of money. Things happen in stores, mistakes or, people forget things, it happens. So it's something to keep in mind. This is the first thing that comes to mind that we have to deal with. What about some of the other areas?
Some of them are really pretty easy. We have to put in the number of sales permits and that's 29. So
You want to
That's
try to
fine.
march through a few of them right now? Let's see how it goes.
sure.
We all should have the same page number, which is helpful.
So
Okay, so first one is on
5.
page 5. And in gray, everyone, you're seeing tobacco leaf in kits or roll your own packages shall be considered blunt wraps for the purpose of this regulation.
Say yes.
So we will have that in. Okay,
Well, I mean,
Yep.
that's just me saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right.
speak up, yes or no, or you
Right.
don't have to say anything, but we're just gonna, so that's in. Okay. All right. Next gray area, folks, is page 8. Am I correct?
Yep.
Okay. Rolling papers. So this is a new definition that I assume didn't exist.
And it will permit banning flavored non-tobacco, non-nicotine wraps such as hemp wraps. If this is in here, then what goes along with it is the ban of those flavored non-tobacco, non-nicotine wraps. So it's not just adding a definition, but it's also adding a ban.
Mhm.
So for clarification, they can be sold so long as they're not flavored or have
Right.
characterized as flavors. Okay.
I think it makes sense. It goes in full flavor,
Consistent with the
Right.
rest of the flavor.
consistent with what we're banning in terms of flavored tobacco.
I agree with that. It's consistent. Charlie, Larry,
So what was on the agreement? What,
Talking about non-tobacco, non-nicotine wraps.
right, correct.
Wraps that are flavored, and we have banned flavored tobacco, so it seems consistent to ban wraps that are going to be flavored because that kind of is getting
Sure.
around and it,
But it doesn't ban those that are unflavored.
right.
correct.
Correct.
Sure.
It's reasonable.
Okay. Okay, let's go to 9. One up on top there, a rolling paper with a characterizing flavor shall be considered a tobacco product flavor enhancer. Well,
Yeah.
it's sort of what we've been saying just now.
Right,
So that would stay
yes.
in. Okay. Staying number 9, it's D, 2A. So that should have been yellow is what she said.
Yeah.
So we don't have to do anything with that, but that has to be in there. And the same, if you go to page 10, number 3, in A and B, that has the word every and every in gray, and that's supposed to be yellow, so that's a given, that's in. Now, we're still on page 10, E, tobacco products sales permit, number 1, and you see the word indoor there. Did anyone kind of get what the issue was there? What
Right.
was?
Well, she said you could have like a fair and somebody could have a booth and they could sell tobacco. If we don't specify, it has to, it's only allowed in a permanent establishment indoor.
Right.
So
That makes sense.
I think it makes sense. Yeah. Just,
I'm okay.
So that's yes.
It's a yes.
Yeah, otherwise that certainly could be a loophole.
Yeah, no, her example was a good one. Okay. Let's go to page 11. It's busier here. Okay. Number 9 says
was an error. It shouldn't be gray, she said.
this
Should not be gray.
should not be.
Yeah, because it's in there. It's supposed to be.
And 11,
This has to do with the time
not be renewed.
between offenses that we have to set.
Would the hearing be with this board? If they were to request a hearing?
Okay, would not be renewed as the-
Do you know what our time period for appeals is? Offhand?
Typically it's 10 days. Most public health is 10 days.
Is it necessary to include that in the,
Yeah,
specify the 10 days in there, or would it be?
I think was what we
Partner.
had to do, to say, yeah, specify it,
Okay. So we should spell that out.
right?
Yeah.
And the 10-day period to appeal has expired. Just put 10-day period instead of time.
Say it again.
Just say 10-day period to appeal has expired instead of the time
The time.
period.
Okay. Okay,
11 is, you're saying yes?
so 13.
That's the 2,000 feet one.
Right. So that's in.
I mean,
Yeah.
last meeting, we said it was, yeah.
They're not.
Other,
No, part of the issue is possibly moving and using your permit in another location is kind of what we're talking
let's
about.
say a new permit,
Right.
says
New
new,
permit,
We
right.
don't issue new permits.
They only go down.
Transfer them.
right. So does this even have to be in there?
Yes,
Okay.
it has, yeah, it has to do with not having
Saturation.
retail establishment in every corner, like
No, but
there
I'm
is in
saying
Hyannis.
if you aren't issuing any new permits,
Permits,
then why
and
would we even need this?
they can be transferred.
Right, they could transfer ownership. In this case, it's not
not a
transfer
new
ownership.
Right.
The
It's a new applicant.
retail facility is moving its physical address. So should the verbiage include? Or is that covered when it says new permit?
It's not, so,
So maybe some clarity there.
right, right.
Let's take this scenario. If this was enacted, right, not grandfathered, if this was enacted, could that all seasons actually happen if this is in place?
Well, that's what we're trying to do is just word it so that it says what we want it to say.
Okay.
Which is that it is a new applicant for a retail location.
Absolutely is.
Yeah.
We're not talking a new license.
talking about a
This new
new-
applicant bought the license from someone else.
An existing, that's right.
Okay, so it is a new applicant.
For a retail location, not for a license though. But this just says a new. Yeah, so it doesn't really,
New sales permit.
right, it does say that. And what we're trying to say is. So-
It's not a new, it's really, it's a new location, but it's not a new permit.
Right, so this would not,
So would
would
it be a
not
new-
even affect this new place.
Would it be
the way it's
changed to
written.
New permit holder. If you look back at the definitions on page 7.
For school.
Permit holder is any person engaged in the sale or distribution of tobacco products who applies for and receives a tobacco product sales permit.
So not to play the devil's advocate, what's preventing then all 29 of our license holders to say, all right, we all want to be on the corner of Station Avenue and Forest?
Right, right.
What's preventing that then?
Nothing. And that's why we're trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to word this so that it doesn't, then I think we just need to add,
Transfer.
an existing tobacco product sales permit owner shall not be allowed to move within 2,000 feet of an existing.
Mary, you think new or transferred license, something like that, transferred permit? New or existing?
There aren't any new ones, right?
Yeah, well, that's what we're getting hung up on
Yeah.
is new. There are no new.
Yeah.
It's a new location. It's not a new permit.
Right.
But it could be a new permit
could be a
holder.
new-
Could be new permit
Holder.
holder. That's the, okay, so we're still at the number 29 with the new individual in a new location.
Well, what is this supposed to accomplish, this paragraph? Let's look at it that way. What's
Supposed to keep retailers at least 2,000
Right,
feet
yeah.
apart.
Saturation.
period?
That's it.
Case.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make any difference.
What
Any-
the situation is with the permit.
Right.
Right.
So someone cannot move within 2,000 feet and sell tobacco from another place that is selling it. Wherever the application, wherever the new owner is, or where did that license come, it doesn't make any difference. So our goal here is try some language that you cannot start a business that sells tobacco within 2,000 feet of another
an
location
existing.
doing the same.
A tobacco sales product permit owner shall not be allowed to,
You're just eliminating the word new.
don't take it down yet. I'm just.
Yeah,
trying to
you just
play-
trying to,
And I'm
words,
playing with it because I'm looking at 12, which also then I think needs to be changed. Because it's talking about the 500 feet from the schools, which we want to keep. But it also is not in keeping with the fact that, we don't have technically new permits. They're used ones, if you will.
If we just said tobacco product sales permit holder,
Yeah. Shall not be allowed to move to a new location within two. Yeah, that's it. Good. Eric, yeah, I think that does it, doesn't it?
let's say that, yeah. So you're saying.
Say it again.
okay, so so we're getting rid of the word new, right?
Right.
A
Yeah.
tobacco product sales permit holder shall not be
Allowed
allowed
to move to a new retail location within 2,000 feet of an existing. Right? Shall not be
Mhm.
allowed. Move. Within 2,000 feet of an existing retailer. Yes, and then up above, it will be the
Yeah.
same.
I was working on the one up above.
Oh, Okay,
Okay.
well, the same. A
Okay.
a tobacco product sales permit holder shall not be allowed to move to a retail location within 500 feet of a public.
Okay. And if you could, just the one down below. So we're taking out new, we're putting permit holder.
Right. Shall not be allowed to move to a retail location within 500 feet of a public or private elementary school.
Okay. Okay, I think we're getting hung up on the word new.
Yeah, because it's not in our regulations that there be such a thing.
You good on that?
We're on page 12. Okay, prohibition of smoking bars. Smoking bars are prohibited in the town of Yarmouth.
Right now. Right?
Hmm.
Not right now.
Right. So
Why?
are we banning them?
Many people come to Yarmouth to smoke in a smoking bar.
And we don't have,
We have
we don't have-
beaches and everything.
We don't
No,
have it.
No, we don't have, it. We don't have it prohibited.
one other question I had was, do we have any adult only tobacco retailers either?
No.
I didn't.
No.
I'd say we prohibit them. Why? I'd say keep them out. What do you think? Larry, Charlie? No?
Well, wouldn't that involve issuing a new permit anyway? Which you wouldn't do?
I don't know what the deal is with smoking bars.
Smoking bars, I'm wondering if in fact.
I mean, wouldn't you need a permit?
Oh, some kind of permit.
Different
I
kind.
was just, but then that's not a retail
I
Right.
see.
permit.
You're not
Right.
selling to take out.
Okay.
They're just for use inside.
And I would agree then that should be
Right.
in there.
Yeah,
If- if
I
you-
absolutely
that's what you
do.
wanna do.
Okay.
Yes, I certainly support that. Okay, down to H on the same page 12. So the first thing is the possess, hold and keep times 3. That's at our discretion. Seems to make it simpler by having it in. Does anyone have a problem with having it in?
Well, but it's almost like saying that no one can have it. Can have, I could buy something, I don't know, in New Hampshire and have it on my person. It's almost sounding like that. It sounds too broad to me. Shall possess, hold, or keep. So if I bought something in New Hampshire that I wanted, I can hold it or keep it, can't I? Are you gonna
You mean
say
it
if
could be in your
somebody
pocket,
around
it could
here,
be in your pocket and you're
Yeah.
there?
and you find out about it, and then am I going to be against this regulation? You
Okay,
see what I'm saying?
yeah, no, we certainly wouldn't want that
It
to happen.
kind of,
The example that Sarah gave was a retailer saying, this is just a display, this is a floor model. So rather than no person, should it be no retail, no
I
retailer?
was thinking no retailer shall.
retailer,
possess.
right.
Yeah, right.
I think that's what that's the example she gave.
Right.
Right.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I had put with
Okay.
retailer. So I just, substitute that with retailer.
In place of the no person?
Yes, Yeah.
Wouldn't it be retail establishment? Because a retailer is the individual that operates a retail establishment.
Okay.
Retail establishment is the physical place of business or section of the physical place. So to use your example, the store owner could have menthol cigarettes from New Hampshire in their pocket.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
They could
Okay, well,
possess
so,
all or
sure,
keep
retail establishment. I'm
retail
okay with
Okay.
putting it that way. Yeah.
so you're saying use the word establishment as opposed to a person?
No retail establishment
Okay,
instead of person, right?
Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yes,
yeah,
it does. Yes, thank you.
that's better. Thanks, Eric. Okay. We'll move ahead. Page 13. Same language. Let's see what it's in here again.
So could I just ask a question?
Excuse me,
What,
yeah.
on H, what would be the fine for that violation? What, from my understanding of it?
Well, it's the sale of flavored tobacco products. So if we look at the thing on page
So that's
16,
what we'd refer to just.
right,
Yeah,
flavored
okay,
tobacco product sales.
okay.
But you're going to determine that in a few minutes.
We're getting there.
Because you may lump that under,
Well, no, because that is the state flavored tobacco sales restrictions. That is state.
It's on the left side.
It's not a local.
Okay.
It's-
But the possess, hold and keep, is that state language or local?
On
If it's
display.
yellow, is it yellow?
But the,
Yellow
no, possess,
state.
hold, keep
Where are we?
is not yellow. On page 12.
Right. Yeah, that's just recommended then. That's just recommended.
So what did we decide here? This one, did we decide? Yes,
About the fine?
no, whether or not
Question.
we're gonna institute that rule or not.
Yes, we said we
Yeah.
would,
Okay.
but then you asked about the fine,
Right.
which one would
Yeah, that was
apply?
kind of a separate issue though.
I guess to Larry's point, though, my confusion is part of page 12, letter H, part of this verbiage is in yellow, meaning it's state regulation.
Yes.
Right,
Part of it is highlighted gray, meaning that's,
just the possessed held kept part. And she's just recommending that we add that. It's
right.
Not required.
So, but if someone is in violation, if they're just possessing, holding or keeping it, they're not found in violation of
Selling it.
selling it.
Mhm.
Larry's point, what are they subject to?
So then that's something that, since it's not state required, that would add to our regulations?
If you don't unify it, if you keep that separate tiered,
Right, no, I'm not talking about fines. I'm just saying, is that something that would be added to our regulations? Yes. Separate from that whole issue of fines, but yeah,
So if they were just possessing, holding or keeping and not found to be selling, they would be subject to local regulation.
it would be on the right-hand column.
and that was, like
Understood.
Jay said, her example was the person that said, oh, I'm just displaying it. I'm not selling it.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's gonna come up, but
I mean, I know it hasn't ever come up with our,
it's never come up.
Says-
No.
no.
I can. But if you have to-
but.
For every scenario.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that could, I suppose, if it isn't clear. I don't know. I think we can decide that later in terms of where it would fit. It wouldn't be a state fine anyway. Unless we went unified.
Where are we? 13?
Well, we're done with 13.
14 has got one there.
But yeah, put in adult only retail tobacco stores are exempt, and we say no because we don't allow adult. only.
Right.
So that's not in.
They don't exist, right?
We don't exempt them because they're not
Can't
allowed.
exist.
And we put in 29 for the number of permits.
What number is that on, Mary?
That's the bottom of the page, R tobacco product permit cap. Instead of at the time of the public hearing, which we could say, which was 29.
Right, as long as that's the number, that's all. Okay. Well, we're on 15. Additionally, let's see what that means. Okay. Here's the first violation, a fine of $1,000 shall be issued, and additionally, if the violation is the sale of a tobacco product to a person under the age of 21. We're on page 15, just so you know, okay, we're under violations there, S.
It says commented, would they like us to apply this to all state violations or just the sale to a minor? Just sale to a minor is required under the new law. They want the suspension for all violations. They can just take out additionally. Blah, 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 if the violation is a sale. So in other words, it's up to us. Is this going to be a just the 21 that the state requires? Is it going to be all? State violations?
I'm a little bit lost.
Yeah, I am also. Okay,
Well,
so
what they're saying is, does this apply to just sales to people under the age of 21, which is the state requirement? Or do we want it to apply to all sales?
Okay, so
That are against the
State is-
regulations that we've set?
the state is saying that in the case of a first violation, there's a fine of $1,000 and the sales permit should be suspended for however many days we decide.
Right.
And we're deciding whether or not we want to add.
No, take out the additionally if the violation is a sale of the tobacco product. Which
Under 21.
it would just say shall be issued and the tobacco product sales shall be suspended. It wouldn't take out that. That exception that that applies only if it's the violation is the sale of tobacco product to a person under the age of 21. So the suspension is if it's a sale to somebody under the age of 21. In addition to the fine.
mean for another violation.
If it's under 21, they're saying, do we want to have a suspension in addition to a fine for all offenses, or do we want to limit it to just those, just that the sale of tobacco to a person under age 21?
Okay, so what are the two scenarios? There's a violation, just a regular violation,
Youth compliance.
youth compliance,
Youth compliance, right?
which would result in. I'm sorry, I'm just.
$1,000
I'm
fine.
still
Yeah, no,
on-
I know, which, yeah, no. And the word is, and then additionally, if I read it, that they're tacking on,
A suspension.
it's just, right,
So the suspension only applies if there's a sale to a minor.
This from the state standpoint, yes. From the state standpoint. And so that's what they're saying. Would you like to apply this to all state violations or just the sale to a minor? It's just the sale to a minor that has a fine and a suspension.
Okay. So if it's just a regular,
Flavored.
Violation of something else, right, then there's no fine that has to be, no suspension that has to be levied. So do we want to just keep it to just the under 20 or what did you call it?
youth compliance.
Youth compliance? Or do we want to say any of these violations are going to include a fine and a suspension? I don't want to include
I don't.
everything.
There are too many possible things.
Right,
It's just,
right.
it's too easy for an error to place at a store.
Right.
And I
It
can't
doesn't
see it
give us
either.
any
I
room
want to
to,
start suspending for
Right.
little things like that.
Okay.
I mean, that's,
so we want to leave this in here. We want to leave in that it's only for the youth.
Taking out the word additionally.
no,
No,
we're leaving.
no,
it.
we're leaving it. We're saying that that's the only circumstance under which there shall be a suspension.
right.
Because the second regulation does include the suspension. We're just talking about the first one.
Jay, you have that?
I do have it.
Yeah, okay.
3 days. Good.
I think those are the numbers that we gave.
I
when
think
were
that's what we
looking at it.
did.
Yeah. because he was talking about, I mean, he gave us some parameters, you know, like most did this, most did, we recommend this. So we kind of went with what he said was
So 3 is yes.
the most folks were going with. So now we get back to the whole thing about a unified fining structure or keeping our regulations subject to lesser fines.
Are we keeping under violations B, 1B, where we're keeping the 36 months?
36 months.
Case of a second violation within,
Page 15.
Very bottom of,
15.
I think we.
Very bottom.
Breezed by that one, 1B. The last item, last bolded item.
Second to last sentence on the bottom.
We said we had figured out those times with Bob when he was
Oh,
here
okay,
last
I'm sorry.
time. And the same for the C also. Doesn't mean we can't change that, but
so we're at, on page 16,
Yep.
number 2. And this is now the structure.
right.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at the policies subject to local regulation fines.
Mhm.
Prohibition of the sale of blunt wraps. To me, that's not a $1,000 error. Ban on smoking bars. Well, yeah, I mean, we've banned them. So if somebody builds one and doesn't, you know, then obviously that's a big no-no. Cigar sales regulated. We have,
Where are we now?
we're looking at the the
Page
fine
16.
16 on the
We
right.
already decide that shall be put in up on the top of the page, shall.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
decided that.
we're, and also on C, shall.
Yep, okay.
But we're looking at the policies subject to local regulation fines on the right-hand side of that 2-column at the bottom of page 16. To decide if we're going to say all of these should be the same as the state required fines, which we can say, or we can say, no, they're not. They're going to be lesser fines because maybe we think they're not as serious or important, and some of them are just, I don't know.
I think, Mary, you have a good point, like the prohibition of sale of blunt wraps. We've got retailers that come in and they get a new product from a sales rep. It has a nondescript name. It's called chill, or, you know, something that doesn't necessarily identify it as a flavor.
Mhm.
You know.
Well,
I mean, we're not going to have somebody come in who has gone against the ban on smoking bars, right? We're not going to have Cape Cod Hospital or, you
Right.
know, or one of the local pharmacies come in because they started to sell tobacco. And, you know, we don't have an educational institution, I don't think right now in our community. Non-residential roll your own machines ban. No one's going to put one of those in. And whether they have the revenue license, I think the no local tobacco sales permit is a biggie, frankly. And I think the retail density minimums will be a biggie.
Also flavored products should be added. Is that here somewhere?
It's under the.
Those are under the state. That's under
Where?
the state.
On the left.
Second one on the left.
We have,
I see, okay.
Yeah. These are just the ones that are right now in the ones on the right column are the ones that right now are in our regulation, our tobacco products regulation. It's silly, though, to just have a separate fine just for the sale of blunt wraps.
Right. But for all other purposes, we're considering it to be a flavored tobacco product. Right. But I can see it happening when
Right.
a rep comes in and they have a new product and it's not really clear to the retailer whether or not it's
Right.
flavored.
Mhm.
And somebody's trying to make a sale.
Does that happen?
Yeah.
What happened, the products?
Sure, sure. Please.
Parvesh Patel, Station Avenue Convenience. That happened a lot. Even the product is approved from FDA, and we get the letter from the manufacturer. But then still the tobacco control having issue against that contain the flavor. So we run into that all the time. So the sales rep comes to the store. He said it's 100% legal to sell it, and they give us the paper, the letter stating that it's legal to sell in Massachusetts. But then when we have inspection, and then the tobacco inspector would say, you cannot sell this
Mhm.
because it has a flavor into it. So that's the limbo for us all the time.
With blunt wraps
Correct.
specifically. Mhm.
Correct. Yep. I mean, I just wanted to say something while I'm here.
Mhm.
The reason we banned the blunt wrap a few years ago, because back then marijuana wasn't legal. Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys remember that, but blunt wraps off the table for such a long time. That was the purpose, to ban a blunt wrap so no kids get into it and start smoking marijuana, but just for board to consider that, marijuana is legal in Massachusetts now, so. So
I hadn't thought of that. Thank you.
yeah, because we've been owning the stores and we've been seeing each other for many, many years, 18 years to 21. The claim was before that 18 years brain is not mature. So let's raise the age. So now the age is 21 and we still have so many restrictions. I don't understand why. It's like as a retailer, we constantly battle for us that, like always something changes and so much burden for as a retailer on us, so. But we are here to work with you guys. Just wanted to put my input on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So
I need to educate myself on blunt
Right,
wraps.
me too.
Okay?
Yeah,
This
I
is
was gonna say, I need to read some more about that. That's, I'm not ready.
absolutely, gentleman makes a good point. So, yeah, I need to educate myself on the blunt wraps. It's been maybe since 2018 when we did the regs. So. All right, so let's leave that as an open issue. What else on this page do we need to,
Nothing, nothing on this page.
well, what are we doing about the rest of the column there on the right?
Well, that first one is the only one that I think I think all of the others besides the prohibition of the sale of blunt wraps are fine to put into the left-hand column and levy the state fines.
I'm fine with that. It's just the one on top,
Just the
yes.
blunt wraps that I'm just not.
Larry, Carl, you get.
So those are the 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 lines.
Right.
They would be, yes.
But how can we
I don't know yet.
do that?
Well, we just do it.
Well, how can we say that
We could,
this rule is more important than that rule?
that's what we're saying. We're not ready to decide on blunt wraps, but all the others
We're moving
are
over.
ready to move over. They have to have a local tobacco sales permit. That's important, right? And retailer density minimums, we felt that's important, or we wouldn't have said
Sure.
we're gonna do that. We don't want any healthcare institutions to start selling tobacco. I mean, these are, I think, very unlikely, but they're certainly warrant a heavy fine if it were to happen. Same on smoking bars, we've banned them, but if somebody builds one, and then, yeah, let's,
Well, yeah, I mean, frankly, I don't
Look
really
at it.
see many of
No.
those things happening.
that's what I'm saying. So
This is not going to affect our store owners. I mean, this is,
No, this is just, yeah. But
Would there
the,
be any warnings first before a fine like $1,000 is levied? Would they, for example, no local tobacco sales permit, just, well, for one reason or another, it might have fallen somewhere.
I am guessing that when Phil or whoever goes out, he's going to take the same kind of approach that Bob might, where's your tobacco sale permit?
Okay.
Oh, gosh, we just got a new frame for it, or
Okay,
we haven't put the new one up, and they let him put it up while he's
Okay.
right there and it's done. I
Yeah.
don't think that we're heavy handed in terms of saying,
Okay.
oh, you don't have it, that's $1,000.
yeah.
That I certainly wouldn't be supportive of that kind of.
I think Mary, I think you're right. Some discretion is used.
Right.
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 Right. I mean, of the license, certainly the permit, that's a different story.
Well, if they didn't have one.
We'd
they
know that.
Just didn't have it displayed for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was referring to the display of Mass Department of Revenue
Right,
license.
and that's what I meant to say
Yeah.
too, because yeah, the permit, we would know if they didn't have one.
Sure.
Okay,
just allow us to move to page 17 or not?
yes,
So we're gonna move everything over with the exception of,
The first item.
because we're not,
And did we deal with the number 2 on the top of their violation?
So it was just the blunt wraps that we didn't,
that we're gonna talk about some
Investigate, yeah.
more, we're gonna learn some more about.
I think one of, was it Sarah, right? One of her suggestions was to be consistent with the,
Right, for 30
period
and
for the
say 36
violations.
months, yeah,
it's 24. or
Yeah,
36.
that's what my note says. Yeah.
Yeah. so 36 months is fine to just change it to the others. Is that okay with you too? I mean, we've used 36 months in the other ones, so that
Yeah.
was the. point.
No, that's what I have. That's the last one to look at, I think.
No, the one was
Really?
each day any violation.
18, where are you?
Yeah, 18, page 18. We just
18?
finished 17.
Oh, I don't have anything on 18.
Yeah, I do. Leave in the separate violation section. Each day, any violation exists shall be deemed to be a separate offense. I think that one is always.
Yeah, okay,
bothered
there.
me.
Yeah.
I'd take that out. Since she gave the $38,000 example, the place in somewhere in Massachusetts that apparently was in violation for many days.
Yeah, I'm fine with that as well. That's
To eliminate that,
Yeah, you okay with that?
Which one was that?
under page 18, separate violations.
In other words, every day of the violation.
You got the word day.
take out the whole,
Take out separate violations.
Oh, just
completely.
take out the whole.
Yeah.
you gave an example of Braintree
Yeah.
issued a $38,000.
And I did not understand T at all when she said cease and desist order. I don't understand that. Under T on page 18.
That's over my head. I don't know.
So I guess I just need to have some more information on what, because she talked about it and
So where does that, I mean, are there only 3 fines settings then? It's 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 or? So,
from the state, yeah.
right, that we're using.
No, we're using our own too.
So. And for which violations is it?
It's the ones listed
Is exactly which ones are going to be at our,
right here. It's listed.
So,
Policy
That was
subject
my
to
question.
local,
Go ahead.
any regulations that we have issued that are not required by the state, but are just being required by the town,
well,
which are the ones
I'm
listed.
following, because all we have right now is one item on the right column for our local
State
regulation.
doesn't ban smoking bars, but we do,
Right.
right?
But I'm asking about the other amounts, whether it's 300 or 400 or 500, there are other amounts here. What does that apply to now?
To these here, all of these here, right
Well-
now, all of these here. Any local regulation fines
Right.
are,
If those are very serious ones, unlikely is the reason why we're having a separate fee structure for those.
I don't know. I don't know why we're having a separate fee structure for those.
Right, that's not.
Because,
I'm
well,
sure.
because until, when was it? Very recently, the state didn't have any required fines, and so they were all up to the localities.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
Right.
So that's why, because now the state has said, okay, yeah, these are against state law and you have to, have to fine accordingly. But these ones that the state doesn't regulate and say, are policy regulations, then you can fine however you want. And that's what, and so we just kept our previous original fine structure,
Right.
right, for the things that were just our regulations. And she's saying, do you want a unified fining structure so everything is the same as the state? Or do you want to keep to your own local one and have these things here listed with our local fining structure, if the regulations are?
Okay, if I could just, you're moving everything over except the blunt wrap. Is that
Well,
true?
we're back to, I think, discussing that.
Okay.
I think we've kind of,
All right.
I'm missing it here. The issue is what would 300, 400 or $500 fines apply to right now?
Prohibition of
now,
the sale.
all of these
Right,
things
that's
here
it.
on the
I get
right.
it. I don't know if that makes.
Oh,
Does
you
that make
mean,
any-
well, that's what we said. It doesn't make sense to just have that one. So right now, we're just keeping prohibition of the sale of blunt wraps up for some further discussion. Right.
For the okay, so right now it would be sitting at the $300-400 or whatever is the only thing right now. Okay.
Yeah, because
So we-
none of this is in place. This is not in place, any of these changes.
So
here.
we're just down to one item then, or one violation then,
Right,
that,
that,
okay.
yeah, that we think not something that, and yeah, I mean, it's not even a violation. I don't know.
Anyone else? If you have more comments, you're welcome to come up again. I know this is tough to follow, so please feel free to come up.
What about cigar sales regulated, including minimum sales, price regulations? What does that mean? Not sure what that means.
Section
on that-
page you on.
It's on page 16 on the right-hand side, policy subject to local regulation fines,
Right,
sales, cigar sales regulated, including minimum sales price regulations. What
So
does that mean?
That refers to on page 12, item G, cigar sales regulated. That'll be. There's a few points there. Number one, no person sell, shall or distribute or cause
Single,
to be sold
that's
single
one.
cigar.
right. They're trying to keep,
Oh, I see, okay.
keep the
structure.
pricing, yes,
Fine.
easily sold things from kids,
Sure.
easily available or priced. And that's not something that the state has regulated, but we have put regulations in place
Right.
before the state came
Good.
around and has done it, so. Although the state's catching up with us.
So that's gonna be $1,000 fine then.
What?
For the cigar, and, right? It's gonna be,
Well, yeah, the way we're saying it now, if everything goes over except for the blunt wraps, I think we ought to discuss this separately, when we have a little bit more information on blunt wraps, cigar sales, maybe Bob could help us with a little bit more up-to-date information on what's going on with them and the current environment.
I agree. My concern is, if something can so easily be wrong or it wasn't done correctly and and to have a major fine, like I'm just concerned about that, things that are just too easy to
Right,
happen.
right.
We've had people come, you feel badly, but
Right.
the regs are what they are. So, yeah, so, getting more information would be helpful from him, I guess, with that.
Or we could just say, okay, all of these on the right are up to our own fine system, knowing that most of them aren't even going to be happening. Or maybe just, or we could just move over the things that we think are the most important, like local tobacco sales permit. And maybe retailer density minimums over to the state law. And leave everything else under the local regulations and the local fines.
That's a good thought. How do people feel about that idea? Larry, do you follow what Mary was saying?
Yeah, I am, yeah. Yeah, I certainly see some of these violations and really more egregious than others.
Right.
Yeah,
And some of them are more not likely than others.
Right.
Some of them are,
I mean, I don't know anything about a non-residential roll your own machine ban. I wouldn't even know.
I
what
don't
that is.
either. Do you know what that is? And do you, any of you folks know that?
Used a long time ago.
Okay, so they're not around anymore.
Yeah, that means they did have like a big rolling machine
Uh-huh.
that would roll the cigarette and tobacco together, not the small one that retailer used. But they used to have it long time ago, and that's why I think that was the mention about the rolling machine.
And also probably what they were rolling, which wasn't always tobacco.
Right.
So they don't have these machines around anymore? is what you're
No,
saying?
not the biggest, the industrial one they
Right.
mentioned in that column.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, I'd be happy just leaving that in the column. I mean, it's one of those ones that's not probably
Right.
gonna happen.
Perhaps if I could just, more information from Bob would be helpful as you deliberate this, but there's quite a bit I think I can clean up
Yes.
okay.
and get this,
Hopefully
and get this, except for this last section. These other 15 or so pages, I can clean it, put order, get rid of the color coding. And knowing full well that, the last page still needs to be worked on, and there's still some, there's still some things you need to look over
Right.
to give yourself some discretion and to understand the retailers' concerns. At the same time, public health issues. But if I could, just to say, let me get this in cleaned up to, what you've just decided on tonight, and put this back in front of you. And our next meeting is the first week in October, first Monday in October. So it's pretty short order, and I'd ask that Bob would be here.
Okay,
Does
good.
that make sense?
Yeah, I just make sure other license holders are gonna be aware of it. That somebody else wants to be present, they ought to know about it.
It's good, Mr. Chairman, it's good. That's well noted, and it's only 29 of them. It's very easy. It's a half a day that we go and make sure that they know. Thank you for being here. You're very helpful because you see it from the industry side.
So can I make a one
That's
suggestion? Like, we always discuss, you guys always discuss with Bob Collette, but can we get involved in that discussion also or no?
You what?
I didn't hear the question.
I'm sorry.
So in other words, we always discuss with the Bob Collette about the regulations and everything else.
Right.
So can anytime the retailers will invite to discuss what they feel about those regulations also?
By all means, if you're asking me, I mean, to come in front, even tonight, you know, ideally, and the board will set the next meeting and we'll look at Bob's schedule, but the board always welcomes input
Right,
from
right.
whether it's pool operators to landlords to retail tobacco, food service and beyond. The education and engagement with the business owners
Right.
makes it more effective.
And
No-
it's like I said, we like to work hand to hand, hand in hand. So, if we get involved a little bit, then, if give us a little opportunity.
The board is always,
I mean, we don't want to see you at all at violations, so come at other times, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be helpful
By all
for
means.
both sides.
sir, Bob Colette will come at the table, but please know the board is always open to be able to speak up. Don't feel it's an intrusion in any way. By
Okay.
all means, they welcome that. So plan on that as you'll get this cleaned up. There are some things that still need to be looked at. We say Bob Colette because he's the person who kind of oversees that.
Right.
But you have a piece in this as well. So by all means, I think the board, I speak for the board, welcome you to come back.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have a business here and we obviously want businesses here. There are regulations, of course. You may need to change your plans, your business plans based upon changes in regulations. So you need to be here, actively involved. We welcome that.
Yeah, we will, yeah.
And if anything, then you sit at the table and you with Bob and you go over those things. If you are a representative of maybe of your colleagues, yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
that by all means.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thanks for coming.
Okay,
night.
take care now.
But always, thank you.
Date set for October
Well, if you wanted, we'll let you know, but the first Monday in October is, I think, October 2nd.
Is it?
Okay.
Yes. Yes, it is October 2nd.
Before you go, so you know. Let the board set.
Just check, make sure. Yeah, the second's fine for me, absolutely.
I won't be able to make that meeting, but.
Okay.
But that's all right.
Yeah, okay. So the board's October 2nd.
Yep.
And
And-
publish clean copy.
I'm gonna get this cleaned up. This will be cleaned up by, in a day or two. Back to Bob, and he would be coming. And would welcome you to come back.
Right.
We'll get letters distributed out to all you guys again, and like we did last time, and will be posted on our website. So we can,
My thoughts are if the publish the clean.
Could you
copy-
just, so the people at home,
So what my thoughts are, if the clean copy would be published prior, so we can put our feedback to you guys, like, hey, this is what we're thinking and this is, can be done, or this is.
Right.
Yeah.
To be discussed, in other words.
the board will come up with a better product if they have your input. No
Okay.
question.
Yeah,
Okay.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, third, the fourth, here we are, update on migrant family relocation. Okay, you want to just take us through what's happening?
Sure. I'll walk you through what I'm sure all of you have read about in the paper or have seen in the community. And I'm going to speak just specifically to the health office, our involvement, so that you understand it has been that the selectmen, the town administrator, perhaps some other officials, but I can speak specifically to our office, the health office. Going back now to the Friday, it was September 8th. We received the town administrator received a note, an email letter attached saying that migrant families would be coming this weekend, meaning the 10-11 weekend, not this most recent, but the one prior. They identified Harbor Suites as being that, and it should be in that letter, it said as soon as tomorrow. That would have been Saturday. It didn't happen. This is from the governor's office. It didn't happen on that Saturday, but that Sunday night, you probably read about that Harbor Suites migrant families did come. I can tell you, it has been difficult, to get accurate timely information, ideally proactive. It just has not been. There's a number of different agencies we're dealing with. The governor's office, the town administrator, and the selectmen have been very proactive trying to get information. Additionally, there's a district manager that is done from the southeast to the onto the Cape, and we also have the Department of Public Health. And the information has been inconsistent at best. And I understand there, it's a very dynamic process, but it's difficult on our end. It's a very emotionally charged issue. And we're trying to be as credible and as transparent as we can. The selectmen have been forthright. They're working with the state administration as best they can. But to call it imperfect data is being kind. It is just has been very, very difficult. And I think each of the entities that I talked about are looking at different dashboards. They're giving me what they know. The town administrator works with the governor's office directly. I work with state DPH and the supervisors. And the information is so fluid and so dynamic that it changes. So that's why you've seen emails from me to say, directing each of you and constituents that you work with, and people are going to come to you as credible leaders to say, where are we with this process? Everything is coming through the town administrator onto the website and the selectmen as well. They are right on top of this issue, but it has been difficult. There is a new press release that has come out. One is from the superintendent of schools. That's an issue that I'll talk about. And one is from the town administrator, as recent as this afternoon, explaining that, and you have a copy of that. That's been posted today if you have read it. And I visited there today. We've met with the owner of the Harbor Suites. There are 72 individuals, 21 families occupying 25 rooms. As recent, this has been a rapid response team, medical team from the state doing medical assessments. So they're profiling to see what are the medical concerns, and they've been there now. Each time I have been on several occasions, they've been there. I think they've worked their way through the whole population at the hotel. And what they're looking for is baseline medical assessments. If in fact there has to be a workup or a referral or additional information, they're looking for, what the concerns are, that maybe if you watch the town meeting, communicable disease tracking, the MAVEN system, all those things are in place or in progress. In addition to the medical team being there, 4 representatives from the DY school were there as well. So there is tracking that's going on. There is a process. One of the individuals that I speak with, the town nurse on a fairly regular basis, the supervisor, she said, one of the families is from Mattapan. It's just that their documentation is just in another community, but it takes some time. And the superintendent, anyone listening at home, and for you to understand, please look at the website. And the reason why the information is being channeled to one voice is so that it is consistent, it's timely as best we can, but it's the most credible information that we have. And I know that's frustrating and we don't get it proactively. We haven't had time to respond, but in meeting with the manager in a timely manner to plan. But the good news is that meals are being taken care of, medical assessments are going on. The manager, the owner, I should say, at the hotel has said, I don't need any other resources from the town. Food is being taken care of. Medical needs are being taken care of. We're well organized. A lot of faith-based and nonprofits have come forward to help us. We don't need anything else. I was there this afternoon to stop by to again simply say, is there anything you need from the town? Are things working well? So things are working well. I know there's a lot of fear in the community. But so a lot of the anxiety and the things I heard at the selectmen's meeting that I attended, quite frankly, were just factually inaccurate. There are medical assessments that are going on. There are things, and I'm by no means I'm making a political statement on it. I look at this as far as, I've managed homelessness in an urban center. It is difficult. That's not perhaps the best setting, not for my discussion. I look just at the medical needs and the health of the community, how they're being cared for, and how it impacts the safeguards in our community. My concern is transportation. and how well they can get up and thrive, how well they can be inserted into the community. The kids started in school today. There was a school bus that came, and I don't have the exact number. If anyone at home or the board has any concerns, call the superintendent's office, Mark Smith, very available. He has a site giving information as well where that is, but go to the website for information, and on a multiple times during the week, the town administrator is in touch constantly with the town official, with the, certainly the selectmen, but the elected officials and the governor's office to best accommodate our most recent residents, but also protect safeguards for the community as a whole. There is a process in place. It's not ideal. I do understand from the state. We've been on Zoom calls with the lieutenant governor and Ed Augustus, the secretary, actually, that's handling this process. There's a lot coming at them, and they're doing the best they can. The other part is important to understand. There are 80 communities in the Commonwealth that are participating in this program. By no means has Yarmouth been targeted. Almost 1/3 of the municipalities are, if you can argue right or wrong, and that's a whole discussion for a different, the selectman or the town administrator to talk about, is this the best location? But we are one of 80 communities that are participating in this program.
So far.
So far, good point. And when I say 72 families, 72 individuals today, I don't know what tomorrow is. Some may up and move. One of the families I talked to, the school nurse, they were in Mattapan going to school, and now they've been brought down here. I can't understand that. I don't understand. So it's a very fluid process. We get very little proactive information. With good information, you can make a good decision. That we don't get that information in a timely manner. The selectmen are right on when they say they're working complete transparency. As they get information, Selectman Chairman Stone has been completely transparent with this, and he handled a meeting this past week very well, trying to make sure the residents, their concerns were voiced, but also be able to say, this is what we're doing. They're managing a very difficult situation as best they can, and the town administrators to be commended in how they're handling this. It is difficult at best. It's a very, very difficult situation, and they're doing the best they can.
How does the state find these places? Does the owners of the motels contact the state, or how does the state ferret out these places to send people?
Yeah, Larry, that's a great question. Our understanding is that they're reaching out in a very, with a broad brush, a wide net, to find out where they can house individuals. So although we've been told up and down 28, the motels have been contacted to say who would be interested in doing this. So I don't think it's a signed up kind of program. They right now, originally, if you've been following this issue at all, it was the Yarmouth Resort, right? Originally, with some issues with the building department and some certifications that were required. That has been backed off, and now it's the Harbor Suites. But I think they're contacting quite a few because the numbers are so large. The numbers are so large in this. I mean, ideally, in a couple of months at the Cape, as businesses start to shut down, is that going to be the best spot for them? Transportation is a serious concern on the Cape. Can they thrive there? It is difficult. Is that the best location? It is a location, and that's what they're working on right now, trying to find locations.
Temporary, suppose.
And it is temporary, but the board needs to know and the community needs to know, individuals, they are housed right now. Their most immediate needs, medical, food, shelter, protection is being taken care of right now. The next phase is to be determined. But it's great news that there are no resources from the town as far as, and I thought I would be sourcing food and diapers and medical and things of that nature. No, I check over to make sure those safeguards are in place for them, and then for the residents, for the migrants, and then also in the community. And I can tell you with certainty, it is being taken. There is a process that's being followed in the state. The medical response team that I referenced, 2 RNs that are there, And I asked about translation capabilities. They speak Portuguese and Spanish. And they have translation there. And that has not been a problem. The owner said it has not been a problem. Public safety, they use Google Translate so that communication is okay. And like I say, the most immediate needs are being taken care of. I know there's a lot of other concerns that individuals have, and that's to be debated at not in front of the Board of Health, but in other places. Sometimes it's at the State House, probably. So I know I'm asking you to, as a board, refer to this website. Some of that, please know that was for your protection or just your own. You're seen as credible individuals in the community, and people are going to ask you. You may tell them on Monday there are 13 people and they find out tonight there's 72. It puts you in a difficult situation. Directing everyone and yourselves, the town administrator is committed to and has been giving the best information he can in a timely manner, direct everyone and channeling information to the website. That's where we stand right now. I'm glad to take down any questions or answer anything that I have, or if anyone has anything to my knowledge.
It was great, Jay. Thanks for.
It's
filling
been
us in.
difficult. Well, thank you. And it is extremely difficult. I'll come in on Saturdays and Sundays. I was here on Sunday, and the protests that are going on. I don't make any judgment on any of that. It has created a lot of emotion and unfortunately divide here, and we all have to work together on this. It is very, very difficult, but the selectmen, the town administrator, they're working the phones and they're working as hard as they can, and also to make sure that, individuals, everyone in the community is their top priority, everyone. And that's what they've demonstrated very clearly. And those systems are in place.
Mr. Gardner, there is a hand raised.
Okay,
Thank you for recognizing.
sure.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again. Tom Nicanella from the very historic precinct number 3. Board of Health is extremely important, and each one of you volunteers are extremely important to that process. And the health director speaks very kind, and it's very true. Our people here in our town, our citizens are more than willing to help people. We've been helping people for a long time. It's just a health issue when it comes to our environment, Mr. Chairman. And, on one hand, the state is telling us that we're an environmental hazard living on a sandbar with nitrogen. And on the other hand, they're giving us more full-time residents. To me, that's a health issue. We're being forced to change our way of life and clean up our environment, which, it's our fault it's there in the first place. As we saw in our wastewater presentations, we had a 722% increase in population, and nowhere for this nitrogen to go except our shores and polluting our groundwater. So I think the message should be sent through the boards, through our county, through our region on a sandbar, that more nitrogen is not healthy for us. Putting more people across the bridge in an environmental non-sandbar area where the nitrogen has a capability of turning into a gas and not a liquid into your water probably makes more sense. So I'm not sure what the State House understands, but they're telling us our whole region is an environmental nightmare, and yet we're getting more full-time residents. I don't understand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, I'll keep you posted. And again, please just check the website. It's a very fluid process.
Okay, thanks for the summary. That's good. I know it's 8:00, so having a quick coronavirus update or anything.
That'd be me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
It is close to 8. I will make it quick. There has been an uptick in positivity rates here in Yarmouth. However, the town of Yarmouth versus the county and the state, we are below the percentage, which is good. We're doing that. I do have a small, will be posted on our website. I got from the 3 different sites today. The state DPH, CDD and CNN, kind of the same thing. I put it together. I'll have it up on the website, but there is, with the new virus out there, Moderna and Pfizer, there's going to be new vaccines available at the major retail pharmacies and retail stores, the bigger ones, which is going to be good. I also will put this up, like who should get vaccinated. It's 6 months and older, who should get vaccinated, why, stuff like that, when to get vaccinated, if you've been sick or not, or if you've had previous vaccines, that's on here too. Where to get vaccinated, that'll be on there. The cost of vaccinations, again, it's still pretty much covered by all insurances. And for people who don't have insurance or are underinsured, there's programs for that. And then again, where can you get the test? Most of the retail, if you need COVID test, unfortunately, the health department is not provided with COVID tests anymore. You do have to go get those at a local retailer. They're not that, they're expensive. I know some of the bigger retailers are less expensive than if you go to certain other retailers. I can't say which one to go to, but unfortunately, we do not have COVID test here at the health department to give out to the public anymore. There's that. On the same note, the town of Yarmouth is going to be conducting their annual flu clinic. Normally it is at the St. Pius School. We are moving that to the Yarmouth Senior Center. The flyer is up on our website for all the information. It will be November, the 3rd from 1 to 3 o'clock at the Senior Center again. It's ages 5 years and older, November 3rd. Register online. When you register online, if you go, there is scheduling contact information for everything right there. All the scheduling is going to go through Cape Cod Healthcare. So we won't be taking, when you call to the health department, we'll redirect you to the scheduling department. So that's a good thing that we're going to be doing this. Help with the VNA. It's going to be a nice smooth flow. Again, it's going to be at the Senior Center this year as our flu clinic, and the flyer is up on our website. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The new rural business. I have nothing. Anyone else? Okay, we're at number 7. Anything else, Jay? Do you want?
Just want to set the next meeting if you could.
Was October 2nd. I
Okay.
think.
You're
Yeah,
good. That's confirmed.
we're in.
Yep.
Back to number 7. Just need a motion here. Somebody,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second somebody?
Second.
Larry? All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Anyone against? No, probably not. Good. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out for a long meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Good luck with that hip.
Yeah.